It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, a show for the most passionate fan base in the NBA.
Covington playing Levine, topside three ball, bam! Onions, baby onions! Zach Levine in the Bulls!
Your number one source for Chicago Bulls news and stories.
Levine to White, this time he gives it to Williams for three. The rookie! The Puma! Oh my goodness, what a shot!
Hosts Jordan Malley and Matt Peck dive into the best Bulls news and stories around the NBA.
It's Jordan Malley. Jordan, great to see you. Through our 670 score scope, yep.
Where is he?
And it's right over there, Bill. Are you flat out kidding me?
Matt Peck used to do a great job with the Bulls Outsider Show. Now he's doing Locked On Bulls.
There he is, human floor burn.
Oh, don't mess with the boots.
But watch this crossover. Can't spur the free league ghost.
Oh my goodness.
So kick back,
I'm not.
relax,
I'm not.
and get ready for the best hour of your day.
I'm not.
You can just see the vibe.
And these guys are men.
Locked On Bulls starts now.
I love it. Pass to Levine with a right-handed jackhammer slam. Oh my goodness, that was filthy.
Here are your hosts, Jordan Malley and Matt Peck.
Now I'm getting out the dancing shoes.
Locked On Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Jordan Malley. Along with me is Matt Peck. Follow us on Twitter at Jordan C. Malley, at Bulls_Peck, and at Locked On Bulls. Hit us up on our text and voicemail line, 331-979-1369. Drop your text, your voicemails, anything you got for us at 331-979-1369. Today's episode is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. Be having our Ultra Player of the Week in just a couple of minutes, so we will talk about that. But Matt, good to see you. How are you? Happy Hump Day, and big game for us tonight, at least nostalgia-wise. Big game tonight, but also some playoff implications, man. How are you?
Jordan, what's going on? What's up, Bulls Nation? What's up, Bulls fans on YouTube? I'm stoked, man. I think I've seen a lot of energy on Bulls Twitter over the last couple of days leading up to this matchup because we all know how well our old coach, who a lot of Bulls fans still have a soft spot for, Tom Thibodeau, has got these New York Knicks playing. They just saw that winning streak end, but it got to 9 before ending. Derrick Rose is playing well. The old wily power forward vet Taj Gibson, his third different stint with Tom Thibodeau, much like D Rose. You know, they both had a stint with him in Minnesota as well. And I think most Bulls fans are saying, like, yeah, we're a game back of Washington. Still want to try and make that play in. Need this win, but also wouldn't mind seeing D Rose and or Taj have some big moments tonight, just for nostalgia's sake.
Taj, too, played for a short time for Billy Donovan, right? Wasn't Billy Donovan OKC?
OKC.
Yeah. So that's interesting. A lot of implications,
too. You know, when we got that awesome player named Campaign.
Where's Joffrey Laverne playing right now?
No clue.
If you gave me 100 guesses, I don't think I would be able to. And retirement doesn't count. If he's retired, it doesn't count. But if you gave me 100 guesses, probably wouldn't get it. Anyway, it's going to be fun to talk about. I hope we have a fun game to break down tomorrow, and hopefully we're breaking down a win. Again, like we talked about yesterday at the end of the episode, man, just don't let Derrick Rose do Derrick Rose things, go off for 25 or 30 off the bench. And they got to contain Randall somehow, man. The Bulls' biggest weakness without Levine right now and running that big lineup is sometimes they don't exactly defend around the rim. So got to stop Randall tonight.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what Donovan does matchup-wise. You expect that probably Thad Young will see a good amount of Julius Randle tonight, Daniel Tice, and they'll probably just, keep Vooch with Nerlens Noel. If Lowry's in there, he'll probably not guard Julius Randle. Let's hope he doesn't guard Julius Randle. And then with Derrick, trying to slow down. His burst of speed is back in a way that I think Bulls fans probably never thought that it would be. And that's the other crazy thing about this matchup tonight, Jordan. Did you know that today, April 28th, is the same calendar day that 9 years ago Derrick Rose tore his ACL? April 28th, 2012.
Don't speak any omens into existence, especially for this game, even though it's not nearly as meaningful as maybe 10 years ago was. But man, that's crazy.
9 years ago, dude. Bulls fans have gone through a lot of different emotions in those 9 years, as has Derek. But yeah,
that's wild.
You're still. I haven't heard anything about Troy Brown Jr. coming back for this game. If he was coming back for this game, I feel like we would have heard something by now, unless he's a game time decision. So, I mean,
I was just checking to see if they had updated anything.
Who's going to check Derek, especially if Derek's primarily still playing a bench role? Garrett Temple's been starting. Who's going to check Derek and try and contain that burst that he's been able to show getting to the rim recently?
There's a guy that needs to stay on a continuous role, the one that he's been on the last 7 games. We'll talk about him in a second. But tonight, guys that are out as far as what I'm seeing a couple hours before tip, Zach LaVine obviously out, and Troy Brown Jr. is out tonight.
There you go.
The Knicks don't have anybody out, so they're fully healthy. That being said, the Bulls are a 4-point underdog tonight, and the over-under is 209.5. So with that being said, Matt, let's talk about our player of the week. Let's talk about Coby White for a second, because I think he's more than deserving, and I think this is his first opportunity to win player of the week this year. I think Dad's won it a couple of times, P. Will's won it a couple of times, and then obviously the reigning Michelob Ultra player of the week for this season is Zach LaVine, no doubt, but there's no reason not to give Coby the player of the week. He's been the reason why the Bulls have been winning games.
Absolutely, man. By the way, Michelob Ultra, just 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Joy creates success. Enjoyment isn't the end game. It's the whole game. I think it's fair to say that Coby has been enjoying his basketball a lot more in this recent stretch of games. In the last 5 games, the Bulls have 3 wins and 2 losses. And in those 5 games, he's put up some really respectable stat lines: 19-7, 14-6, 31-5, 17-6. He did have a bad turnover night last Saturday against Miami. But other than that, he's kept his turnovers down. 3 on Monday. Going back to the game prior to Miami, 0 turnovers. The game before that, only 1. Same thing the game prior to that, only 1 in the big win against the Celtics last week. So kudos to Coby White, who looks like he has gotten out of his head. Whatever funk he was in with the change in roles going to the bench, he seems to have pulled himself out of it, and it looks like he's enjoying playing basketball again.
Dude, it's nice to see, too. And I think that combined frustration of not really knowing his role and not hitting shots. He's hitting shots now. No surprise the confidence has come back. So that's great to see. Coby White, our player of the week. Michelob Ultra. Go get your Michelob Ultra today. With that being said, Matt, let's get to our first voicemail. You can hit us up at 331-979-1369. Our text and voicemail line's always open, so you're listening to our podcast at 2 a.m. and have a burning Bulls thought, you can drop us a voicemail or a text message, 331-979-1369. Feel free to leave us comments, too. If you're watching us on YouTube, leave us comments there, tweet at us. We want to get your interaction on the show, and we love to do it here with Mailbag. So let's go to our one and only voicemail, and then we'll take a boatload of text messages to wrap up the show. Here's Sam in LA checking in.
Earlier and accidentally said Zach because I just missed him so much on this damn team. But, there's a lot of talk about point guards, we need playmakers, but one thing that hasn't changed is we actually don't have enough perimeter defenders. Like, I look at Pat, and it seems like he might be better as like a power forward, like a Paul Millsap kind of player, because he looks like he's going to be a bigger guy and a thicker guy. Other than Troy Brown Jr., we really don't have a lot of other players that can really hang on the perimeter, like switching from the 1, 2, and 3. Right now with these 3 big lineups, like, it just looks terrible. I know Donovan can't do much, but like, is there really nobody else, that could really play the 3 or the 2 to guard some of these players? So I just seem a little frustrated by it, and I was wondering if you two or anybody else has thought about, any perimeter defenders that can do anything. We can't depend on Garrett Temple all the time. He's like 33, 34. We're going to have to get some young blood out there. But, just the torment of being a Bulls fan right now. But it's all good. I appreciate everything. Good luck, you guys. Go Bulls.
So, Matt, I completely completely disagree with what he's saying in terms of this year. The Bulls' perimeter defense has been really damn good. I know that they've gotten burned in a couple of games where it was just raining threes from the start, but the Bulls' perimeter defense has actually been quite impressive this year. It's being able to get stops around the rim. Do you agree with me, or are you more with Sam?
No, I think I'm more with Sam, man. I think that the Bulls have been taken advantage of inside a lot this season, but it's not because of the defense of their bigs. It's that the point of attack defense has been poor. In other words, the perimeter defense has been poor. They don't have high caliber perimeter defensive guys. Garrett Temple is one. He missed a good chunk of time. And as our caller said, maybe they bring him back on like some kind of veteran, not quite minimum, but close to it deal if he wants to come back next season. Troy Brown Jr. was a nice pickup, but now he's on the shelf. For a while we thought, hey, maybe Hutch was our answer as a solid, 3-and-D wing to give some good perimeter defense. Nope. And the big problem that we found out with Kobe and Zach as a starting backcourt pair is that defensively it opens up a lot of holes and it creates a lot of problems. And again, that's crediting Zach for getting his defense to a more respectable level over the past couple of years than it used to be, but it still ain't great. So I would probably say, yes, I agree. The perimeter defense is an issue because when the Bulls get broken down in the perimeter, that is when you see them get exposed because their bigs are basically hung out to dry because they're already in a 3-on-2 or 2-on-1 situation.
Without looking, I don't think you've looked at this before, but if I were to ask you, where do you think opponents against the Bulls this season are shooting above the break threes at? Or what clip, as far as the field goal percentage, and where do the Bulls stand 1 through 30, being the best defended team above the break threes, being the worst defended team above the break threes?
My guess would be somewhere in the middle, and teams shooting something in like the mid 30s percentage-wise above the break.
So between like 11 and 21, let's say. The Bulls are tied for the best. They're tied for the best defense. Opponents are shooting the worst above the break 3-point percentage this season on average per game. Listen to this. Them in Utah, the Bulls' opponents are shooting 25.4 shots per game above the break on average, 33.5%. It's tied with the Utah Jazz. Utah is giving up 26.2 on average above the break threes at 33.5%. So they're doing a damn good job of stopping guys from shooting threes above the break. Now, where do you think their corner threes are at?
Way worse than that.
Yeah, it's not good. The Bulls are bottom 5 in giving up corner threes to their opponents this season on average. The Bulls are allowing their opponents to shoot 42.6% on corner threes this season.
Right.
They're only shooting 6.8 threes, though. That above the break stat, though, is no lie, man. That's a commitment to not letting teams just come out there and drop 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 threes like we've seen the last couple of years, man. So
right.
I do give them credit.
Surprisingly impressive, but the corner threes thing is not surprising because, when you talk about a team that can break down the opponent's defense, the Bulls are not a very strong rotational playing defensive team. Like, their rotations are bad. They get mixed up a lot. And, I would say they're probably somewhere right in the middle as far as the frequency of how much switching they do versus how much they stick to man. And they only very rarely go to zone. But they give their opponents a lot of corner threes that are good looks at corner threes because they're just bad at rotation on defense. It's as simple as that.
You can't have your bigs coming out to help either when you can't stop anything at the rim either, and then you can't even rebound consistently too, but that's a different issue, and I'm not going to get mad about that either. But you're right. Corner threes are an issue. It exposes everything else that teams can open up, and now when every single one of your guys 1 through 5 can shoot a three pretty much on every single team, every single night, it gets difficult if you're allowing threes at that clip, but I do like to see that above the break three being tied for the best among the entire NBA this season. Just for kicks, and then we'll go to a text. Bulls, in terms of restricted area, where do you think opponents are shooting?
It's like percentage in the restricted area?
Yeah.
Opponents, somewhere around 60%.
Yeah, and most of the league is. But the bottom one is 60.4%, and the top is 69%. The Bulls are smack dab in the middle, so they're actually not doing as bad. I would like to see what after the All-Star break looked like, because the Bulls have just been atrocious trying to stop people at the rim after the All-Star break. Good question, though. I don't know if we answered it, but maybe give you a little bit more insight on what the stats are telling us, and that's just one key factor to analyzing what the Bulls have done on defense.
Yeah. And speaking of defense, Jordan, let's shift to a text message here. The 815 is asking about our guy Daniel Gafford. Can we attribute Gafford's success in Washington with the fact that he's playing with an actual point guard? I feel like we touched on this a little bit the other day, Jordan. Who else on this roster do you think is underachieving because of the sole reason that we do not have a starting level point guard on our team? It's a very, very good question. And I mean, my obvious answer, at least it used to be before I gave up on him entirely, was Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen has never played with an above average point guard in his entire NBA tenure, all of those seasons with the Bulls. What about currently, though, Jordan? I mean, maybe acknowledging that Lauri might not be here much more than another month, like 10 games, that's it, by Lauri. People who you think might be sticking around, who do you think would benefit the most from the Bulls playing with an elite or close to elite level point guard?
It's probably going to be Vooch. I mean, that's the easy answer. If you're looking for a younger player, I'm with you, man. Lauri Markkanen is the guy. I would love to see what his catch and shoot rate is at now in terms of assisted balls off a catch and shoot compared to being able to get his own bucket. We touched on that maybe about a month or two ago, and he was upwards of like 80% of his shots were coming on catch and shoot balls. Mm-hmm. When you don't have a point guard, you can't be successful on a team like that. That's ridiculous. So, yes, Lauri Markkanen would benefit first. Zach would benefit as well. Kobe would benefit as well. But Kobe and Zach can get their own shots. They've proved that this year alone. I would say Vooch would probably benefit the most, though. You can really play a lot of pick and roll, do a lot of nasty things when you've got a decent point guard on the floor and you got Zach at the same time. I mean, I think it's Vooch.
Yeah. I would probably agree with you. I would also throw in P-Dub as another name of somebody who I hope, if the Bulls get themselves a better competent point guard next season, could really help him blossom on the offensive end. Because we also see the potential in Patrick Williams to do some of his own things on the offensive end. He has shown at times he's willing to put the ball on the floor, beat his man off the dribble, and get to the rim. Creating space to pull up for his shot in mid-range, which he's very confident doing. But if you add to that a point guard who could get him the ball where he wants the ball, where he can be really deadly with the ball, man, I mean, that's certainly high on my list as well of who I think we need to help out with a quality point guard here in Chicago.
I'm with you. I'm 100% with you, man. And I'm curious, too, the Bulls won't be done, this offseason, just besides their obvious target being the point guard, but I think everybody will benefit from that. The style that the Bulls are trying to play commands that. Mm-hmm. I mean, sort of with a big, I guess that makes sense, but Vooch isn't really a Jokic. He's a Jokic light. He's a Nurkic light, if that. Yeah, that's a good point on Patrick Williams. Let's go to a couple of more text messages. Before we do that, I want to tell you guys quickly about BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action at BetOnline. This week has a ton of sports action going on. The NFL Draft is tomorrow. The Kentucky Derby is back as the first leg of the Triple Crown begins this weekend. Get all the news, odds, and info for all your sporting needs, including MLB, NBA, NFL, and your UFC MMA action. Before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign up and bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. This is your chance to get in the game as teams prep for their runs to the playoffs. Matt, I was telling you about my damn near, like I probably wouldn't have shown up to the podcast Monday type of win over the weekend. I was 9 Brooke Lopez points short of hitting $25,000. So
What?
yes, Edmund Sumner,
What the hell
20
kind of odds were those, man?
Jared Allen, he had a career high 27 points. I had him having over 25. Edmund Sumner on the Pacers, who's actually a Bulls killer, by the way. He had 21. I had him to have over 20, and I needed Brooke Lopez to have 20, and he had 11. Want. But guess what? Brooke Lopez drops 22 the other night, too. So the game I didn't need him.
Because
you can do all of that.
Is cruel, but fun. So go to BetOnline, right?
But go to BetOnline, use the promo code LOCKEDON when you sign up, and you will get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
Today's episode also brought to you by our great friends at Built Bar. Jordan and I already had my Built Boost Immune Defense drink earlier today. Probably have a little mid-afternoon snack with a peanut butter brownie Built Bar, freshly restocked on that flavor, one of my favorites. These new and improved Built Bars are even deliciouser than ever. These Built Bars are covered in 100% chocolate. They're soft and they're easy to chew. Great for the health-conscious sports fans out there. Lose or maintain your weight while indulging in these delicious treats. Take, for example, the Peanut Butter Built Bar, which has 19 whole grams of protein, but only 180 calories. Only 5 grams of sugar and just 5 grams of net carbs. Right now, if our Locked On Bulls listeners go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15, you'll get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com.
Man, I want to go to a text message here. This is from Austin. Says, love your guys' podcast. Been listening for about a year now, and this is the first time I'm texting in. He says, I was looking at the current Bulls' path to the playoffs, and it's not looking amazing, but it's still possible. The Bulls sit 1 game back currently of the Wizards, but I'd say the Wizards have a much easier schedule than the Bulls going forward, so I looked at the next team up being the Pacers. The Pacers are 2-8 in their last 10 games against the teams that currently sit in a playoff or play-in spot 1 through 10. 7 of their final 11 games remaining are against teams sitting 1 through 10. Bulls are currently 3 games behind the Pacers. It might be something to watch out for. Yeah, man, I think till the end of the season, man, when the Bulls are officially eliminated, I think every game is going to have some type of playoff implication for this team. And it sucks, man. Why is it 2 seasons in a row that we end with, like, the death schedule? Like, what is this?
Brutal, man. And, when we saw the Bulls coughing up winnable games earlier this season against just shoddy opponents or shorthanded opponents, letting late leads slip away, and that stuff we saw them do last season too, you always thought, man, if they come up just shy of these playoffs or this play-in tourney, they'll look back on some of these games that they lost and say, damn, because this is a gauntlet of a final stretch of the season. Our texter mentioning Indiana's schedule certainly isn't easy, and they have been in a slump of late. That's true, but it's not like the Bulls have a cakewalk. We got the Knicks on deck tonight. They're playing very well. You got the Bucks after that to finish out April, and then your 9 games in May go Atlanta, playoff team, Sixers, 2nd seed in the East, Hornets above you in the standings, Celtics, playoff team, Pistons, okay, there's a gimme, hopefully. Nets, 1 seed. Raptors, hanging around. Nets again, and then Bucks. So, I don't have the Pacers schedule exactly in front of me right now, but I'm guessing it's not a whole lot easier than that, if at all.
You have no shot either. If you don't have Zach back for, 75% of those games, you got no shot. You got absolutely no shot.
The Pistons game, of every remaining game on that schedule that I just rattled off to you, the Pistons game is probably the only one where the Bulls will be favored, right?
Yeah, and they've been tough too. Like, even going out and playing a crap lineup and still playing all their young dudes now. Like, Jeremy Grant's still putting up 20, 25 a game, and their young dudes are fighting too. So they've hung around with a lot of teams they shouldn't be this year.
And just beat Atlanta the other night.
Yes, they did. Atlanta's
By the
missing
way,
Trey
did
Young.
you see Chris Dunn's stat line? His first game back?
No, I missed that.
Classic Chris Dunn.
It's gonna take some time, man. How long has it been since the dude's
I know.
played a
He's
game?
knocking off some rust, but it was just hilarious. He played 13 minutes. He had 0 points on 0 of 5, 0 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 1 turnover, and 3 fouls. In 13 minutes.
Dude, Bogdan Squared, though, has been going absolutely nuts for the Hawks. So even without Trey Young, he's been going absolutely off. Yeah, it's going to be tough. So every single game's going to count now, so it should be exciting. So the people that are maybe just tuning in towards the end of the season, casual Bulls fans, every single game counts. So definitely be tuning in, and it starts tonight with the Knicks. We'll talk about officially elimination when we get there at that point. Until then, we are playoff bound until further notice.
We are not there yet. Jordan, the 217 texted in saying, just in all caps, I know you guys saw that Twitter thread about Denzel. Did you see that they put up that Twitter thread of, here's a thread proving that Denzel's the worst player in NBA history? They were talking about it on Highly Questionable the other day, like the day following that Denzel shot.
Can't get away from the national beatdown. Like, why? Like, come on. What has the organization done over the last year that hasn't been positive besides individual play? I mean, granted, Denzel definitely deserved it for taking the stupid. That's 100% the stupidest shot in the NBA this season. It might be in the decade. Like, outside of J.R. Smith forgetting what the score was, like, what are some other dumb shots? That was a pretty dumb one to lose you a game.
Yeah, incredibly. And, we didn't even have any fun J.R. Smith antics after the fact. Like, nobody threw a bowl of soup at Denzel in the locker room after the game that we know of. Which is a damn shame.
I kind of feel bad for Denzel, but at the same time, dude, you did it to yourself. And just go look at that thread as evidence, man. We clowned him the first week when he made that ridiculous behind the back pass to nobody on a fast break against Milwaukee. I totally forgot he ran into Zach against OKC. I totally forgot about that. And seeing that again, it just made me more infuriated. So.
Just this meme. What are you doing?
It's just like, and Zach, I don't know how he does it, but he kept his composure, man. Anybody else would just be lighting him up. If it was Jimmy, he'd be lighting his ass up on that court right then and there. Let's take one or two more text messages.
The 708 says this Lowry at the 3 shit, man. Yeah, I know we touched on that a little bit the other day. Especially after this little mini series against Miami, and you're seeing Lowry out there trying to guard Jimmy Butler. Like, dude, no. But we've heard why Donovan is doing it, because the Bulls front court is deep. You added Vooch and Tice, and they're both way better than Lowry. They're both way more useful than Lowry.
Trying to see if he can fit the Gallinari role, man. I'm pretty sure Gallinari played a decent amount of minutes at the 3 when he was with OKC. And I know the season prior to him getting traded there, with the Clippers, he was mainly a 3 too. So I'm wondering if Billy Donovan was like, hey, we're good with the large lineup here, and Markkanen's shooting it halfway decent, so we'll just go with strategy in terms of defense and figure it out. I mean, that's kind of how I've been thinking of it when he's been on the floor having to play the quote-unquote 3. Mm-hmm. This one says, this text message, and then we'll get out of here. I know they probably will, and they probably should let Lauri Markkanen go, but what do you guys think the chances of him becoming an all-star level player is if he leaves here or if he stays? So that's pretty vague, man. Like, let's assume that he stays somewhat healthy. He continues to progress incrementally, maybe not where we thought he was when we drafted him or traded for him. Do you see an all-star caliber player still in Lowry? He's only 23.
I mean, that's true. I think Bulls fans sometimes kind of forget how young pretty much most of this roster is in the years since the Jimmy trade. And 23 is still young enough where you can get better and significantly better. Look what Zach LaVine did from age 23 to 26.
Yes,
But
on a terrible team, too. Take Julius Randle for another example, man.
right. But I'll tell you, man, and it breaks my heart to feel this way because just like you, that I was a big believer in Lowry when he first came into the NBA. We saw what he could do his rookie year. I think back to what Kendall Gill told me one night. It was like our first season of Outsiders, and it was early on in the season, the 18-19 season. And we were talking about Lowry, and I was talking him up like, that's my guy. I believe in him. Like, that's who I'm rolling with. Like, yeah, Zach LaVine is cool and Zach LaVine's awesome, but like Lowry, that's who I see. I want that dude leading this team. And Kendall said, he doesn't have the fire, man. He said, I've watched that kid play a lot already. Watched his rookie year, second year. Doesn't have the fire. Zach LaVine noticeably has a fire to not only want to get better, but want to win. I have never, maybe not never, but very, very rarely seen that kind of fire from Lowry on a basketball court. And it sucks. But at some point, and like the way that Kendall phrased it is like, you got to kick your own ass. If you want to get better, you got to kick your own ass. And Lowry does not appear to be the type of dude who kicks his own behind to get himself better. He doesn't impose his will on a game, despite the fact that he's a 7-footer with all of these, supposed skill sets. And it's infuriating, but it's why my answer to that question is no. I don't think Lowry will ever be an all-star.
I can't quite answer that yet. I would say if I had to bet on it, probably not. Is he a dude that could average a 16, 7, and 4 and shoot 40% from 3? Probably, but he's got to be in a good system. There's only a handful of teams that I feel like Lowry really fits.
The dude averaged 19 and 9 his sophomore year in the NBA.
It's true. It's true. I think he needs to fit. He needs to go to a place where he accepts his role and allows him to just kind of take the pressure off. Here, same thing we talked about with Carter. Same thing we've talked with a lot of guys that have been here and now are gone. The potential is there. They just, for whatever reason, it doesn't work out here, and I don't know why. And it seems like a trend with the last handful of years of Bulls players drafted in the first round is they leave here, don't develop, they go somewhere else and they find their roles, whether it be a Doug McDermott, whoever you want to point out. But he's the one that I think about. Like, he's found himself a really nice role after not really working out here. There's plenty of those examples. Bobby Portis coming off the bench and being a microwave scorer now for the Bucks. Like, there's multiple examples of those guys still being quality NBA players. Probably not an all-star level for Lowry, but he's still young, man. I'm not ready to write him off yet.
No, I mean, not writing him off as being a useful player for some NBA team out there. And who knows, maybe something will light under his behind, and he will start imposing his will on games, and he will improve upon the first couple of years that we saw all of that, brimming with potential kind of stuff at the beginning of his NBA career.
Imagine, I was just going to say, like, imagine you were talking about some of the struggles and like Kendall saying like he doesn't have the fire. The only thing that I would say to that, and maybe it sounds like excuses or not, but I think about too, like Lowry's last, 5 years, coming over from a completely different country, going to college basketball, playing there 1 year, going through the entire NBA. It's living the life of an NBA player, but it's a lot of pressure for a dude of Lowry's caliber. And you pair that with having to deal with having a newborn kid, which a lot of guys have struggled with that too. So there's another side to this, I think, that people don't really recognize, and I don't expect them to recognize that, but I think a lot of that factors in to some of the guys' success or non-success here in Chicago. Some of the things outside of basketball.
I guess it's fair to bring that point up of international player coming and adjusting to life in the States. And the thing about the kid and a family very much so is different. But, I mean, come on. Look at Luka, man. Drafted higher than Lowry. More pressure there.
I mean, that's not even a comparison, though.
Was already a, baller, best player on his team kind of player overseas, professionally, in his teenage years. and comes and is basically handed the mantle from Dirk Nowitzki, who over the last 20 years has been the freaking gold standard of Euro player, comes to the NBA and is a dominant Hall of Fame player. And Luka has exceeded all of those ridiculously high expectations with the same pressures as Lowry, other than he's not a father yet.
You're talking about a generational player, though, compared to Lauri Markkanen, who is, at best, an all-star player, multi-time all-star. Like, that's the very top of the ceiling. We knew Luka was going to be a superstar.
I mean, I think we all thought that he had the potential to be a superstar, but did people think he was going to be, like, legitimately in the MVP conversation in his second season? No.
Oh,
no
not
way.
an MVP conversation in his second season.
I mean, he didn't win it, but people were talking about it because that's how freaking good he was.
No, I know. I know the expectations were there. I'm just saying I don't think it's a fair. I get what you're saying, but I don't think it's a fair comparison to Lauri Markkanen. And to your point though, like about Luka, circumstance, right? Like going to Dallas and playing for Rick Carlisle is a whole hell of a lot different than playing for Fred Hoiberg and Jim Boylan. Like,
True.
And two, how many injuries has Luka had in his entire career? And like, how many games has he played compared to Lowry? I think Lowry's only played like a touch over two full seasons in the NBA over his 4 years. That's tough too, man, when you can't stay consistently on the floor as well. So I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just throwing it out on the other side. Is like, as much disappointment as there might be with what has turned out to be Lowry in his 4 years here, there's a lot around it, and I still think he's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, and he could prove the doubters wrong. And I'm still adjusting to the fact that I have gone from a Lowry believer to someone who no longer believes in him, at least as a piece that the Bulls will continue building with, and not believing in his ceiling being as high as I once thought and hoped it could be. But that doesn't mean I'm rooting for the dude to fail. Will it hurt if he leaves Chicago, finds some other team and some other scenario with pieces, with coach that fit him a lot better and bring the best of him out on the court on a nightly basis, and he becomes a borderline all-star caliber player? Yeah, dude, that will tear me up. I will hate that, but I'll be happy for him. It'll be frustrating to say, hey, man, why couldn't you be this player here? But like we were talking about with Gafford, Wendell, all these young players, sometimes a change of scenery is what's needed. A new coach, new teammates, new system. So, I'm curious. I'm very curious to see what that does for Lowry, assuming he moves on this summer.
It's going to piss me off when he goes to Sacramento, and then he's got Halliburton and Fox to dish to him left and right, and he's dropping 25 a game, man. Like, it's going to make me very angry when he goes and plays with a very competent point guard that can dish him the ball 8-10 times a game and actually get him wide open shots. It's a whole nother conversation about Lowry consistently hitting open shots. But
yeah, but then he has to be playing for Sacramento. Who wants to be doing that?
I'm not saying it's fun, but it's where you go get the money if you want, So, interesting conversation. Like, Lowry is going to be one of those topics, man, that I feel like is our Jabari Parker of 2018, what was our main conversation last offseason? Like, there's always one player, one topic that we tend to surround ourselves around for 2 or 3 months, and that's Bulls Nation. I feel like Lowry's going to be the main focus until further notice.
I mean, you're talking about tonight being game 62, right? 10 games left, including tonight. No, I'm sorry, 11 games left, including tonight. And then that could be it. These could be the last 10 or 11 games we ever see Lowry play in a Bulls jersey.
Also, 11 games left for Denzel to start trying to increase his free
go.
agency.
There's the positive spin we needed to put a button on this episode, man.
I can't even believe Denzel gets a national segment and Antonio Blakeney didn't get his own segment. Like, talk about some shot selection that was just absolutely atrocious. It was Blakeney over Valentine, but it was close. It's close, man. That being said, hit us up, 331-979-1369. Drop your text, your voicemails, anything you got for us at 331-979-1369. We're going to do a locker room later this week, so make sure you follow us on Twitter at Jordan C. Malley, at Bulls_Peck, and at Locked On Bulls, so you know when we're going to do our locker room. We'll announce it sometime on the show, too, as well. So go download the Locker Room app right now and join us later this week. For Matt Peckham, Jordan Malley, Bulls Nation, have a wonderful night. Enjoy Bulls and Knicks tonight. Hopefully we were talking about something good tomorrow. For Jordan and Matt, we are out. Deuces.